The power of the mind. It is such an incredible subject to dive into. I think it's probably one of the most powerful concepts for humans to understand. There's been miraculous things happened all over the planet because of people understanding the concept that I'm about to share with you guys this morning. It can take you from poverty to living in abundance, and it can take you from abundance to living in poverty. It can do both. You know, I don't want to step into that too quick, but at the end, I want to conclude it with some thoughts that I believe you will be very familiar with and help cement the crucial idea of the power of what's available here. Let's take a look at the mind and call it a garden. Is there any people on here that loves gardening? I kind of do. I'm not big in it, but I kind of halfway enjoy it. But I know one thing for sure, weeds are not supposed to be in the garden, right? For those of you that are very much into gardening, I'm going to assume if there's a weed in your garden, that poor little thing is at great risk of dying. You won't let it be there very long until you'll be out there plucking it out and then stepping back and admiring your beautiful garden of plants, food plants coming up, no weeds amongst them, and they are hardy and growing and green. When the time of the year is a little bit drier, I can imagine that many of you guys are out there with garden hoses or maybe a watering container and watering the plants, and you're giving them what they need to be able to grow healthy. And then I can imagine you looking at the incredible tomatoes and carrots and cabbages, peas, and all the different things that this is growing, including the flowers that you have planted along with some of the vegetables and the food plants, and just admiring the beauty of the garden. And now people have figured out how to get the tomatoes to kind of climb up along some cages that they've created, right? And it looks so pretty. The red, orange tomatoes hanging there, and you can walk out and pick them off, enjoy them. And there's just so much. The sweet corn, it's amazing. When a garden is well taken care of and fertilized and the weeds pulled out, it not only looks amazing, it produces amazing. But some of those very same people will not take that same time to do that in their mind's garden. You see, there's also weeds that like to come up in the garden of the mind. It likes to come in and tell us, who are you? Why do you think you are so special? Well, let me just tell that weed exactly what I think about that question. I'm a child of God. That's what makes me special. But let's continue down the path of recognizing the weeds of the mind garden that like come in. The weeds like, well, you know your whole family lineage was broke. You're going to be broke too. You know that in your family's lineage there's been a lot of temper issues. What makes you think you won't have it? Well, now you realize you do not have the capacity and the ability to make money like other people. Why would you think you should be debt-free? Or just where do you come up with this crazy idea that you should live in abundance? Shouldn't you be broke so you're more holy? Yes, those are all weeds that love to come up in the garden of the mind. They like to possess it. And then there's that other little voice that says, oh no, you are fearfully and wonderfully made. That little voice is kind of quiet, and it's in the background for the most part for most people, unfortunately. And it says things like, you are loved. You're beautiful. You deserve the best. You deserve abundance in all areas of life. No, you're not a hot-tempered person. That's not really you. But you see, those weeds are so loud and so bold and so overpowering and so overbearing that you barely even hear that little voice. You're like, go shut up. I mean, this thing about me not being of any value makes a whole lot more sense than that stuff that you're trying to tell me. I mean, good grief, that's just got to be that positive thinking crap. And sometimes we actually pull out the food plant in our mind and allow the weed to continue growing. What makes it even worse than that is sometimes people have negative internal dialogue And with that, they actually cultivate the weed and give it a hardy, beautiful space to grow. And then they stand back and admire it. Like, oh, wow, isn't that wonderful? Yeah, I see. I will be broke my whole life. Yep, that's right. That's right. It sure is growing well, isn't it? I don't have anything really to offer to the world. Who am I? I'm just this little person. I've been rejected many privileges of many people. Yeah, that's right. And that weed continues to grow, continues to move up, and before long, you're not looking at beautiful fruits hanging off of it and food hanging off of it, but you're looking at the massive, healthy plant of the weed. But you see, guys, let's come back and realize, I don't care how big that weed is, it will die the moment it's no longer tended to. The moment you take your attention away from it and start feeding the food plants of your mind, the good thoughts, the thoughts of prosperity, the thoughts of abundance, the thoughts of recognizing who you are, yes, the weed is going to fight you for that one all the way. When you start recognizing who you are, you start recognizing that you are a child of the one that has never lost a battle. When you start realizing you are a child of the one that's created all the wealth of the earth and that he did not create it for the devil and his angels, he created it for you and I. Once you start realizing those, you also start realizing that weed is getting desperate, and it'll start to try to fight every ounce of the way. Once you say that, no, I'm no longer a person of great temper and of confusion, that weed will come up and say, now, wait a minute, where did you come up with this idea to start feeding that and quit feeding me? I'm not very happy with that idea. You see, that weed wants you to feed it. It doesn't care for you to go feed the good plant. It says, I was here first. I had your attention at one day. At one point, you were feeding me. You were taking care of me. You actually pulled out the food plants around me so I could grow good. And now, all of a sudden, you're rejecting me. You see, that weed will come forth, whimpering, crying, boldly, whatever it needs to do to get your attention. But you gardeners out there, we all should be one. We get to keep pulling that weed out every time it sticks its ugly head up, even if it comes in a very, how can I say, almost sincere, and it kind of reminds me of I forget the exact story. I'll share it to the best of my knowledge. It seems as though a turtle was swimming across, obviously it's just a story with a moral, swimming across the river, and there was a snake out there almost dying, and the snake cries out piteously and says, hey, would you give me a ride to the bank? I'm just about to die. I can barely make it. And the turtle says, oh no, you're a venomous snake. You'll bite me. And the snake says, cross my heart, I will not bite you if you just save my life. Okay, so the turtle lets it climb on, and it carries it to the bank. As soon as it gets there, the snake is somewhat revived. It whips around and bites the turtle, and as the turtle is dying, it says, you said you wouldn't do that. And the snake said, I'm a snake. You see, those are the weeds in our mind. They like to come up and they like to poison us. And when you start to take the weed out, the weed will piteously cry for you not to do that. That weed of self-pity, that weed of self-doubt, that weed of whatever it may be. There's so many different things that love to come into our mind that keep us from the promises that should be rightfully ours as joint heirs of Christ, as the Bible had said. Once you start taking those weeds out, none of them will be very happy about that. They don't like to leave that fertile soil of the mind, that fertile soil of the subconscious that you have. They enjoyed that fertile soil. It's beautiful. And for a long time, to a degree, we're able to actually grow without any hindrance. But as you start to develop yourself and move up in life, all of a sudden, you start realizing that some of this jazz going on in your mind is actually not true, and it's not things that belong there. You start pulling it out. And then the battle begins. With that being said, how do you to rebuke some of that? Let me go into some more, practical content as we're closing this. Is the way you feel determines your actions. Your thoughts create the way you feel. And so be very careful. Our thoughts create the way we feel. And when those weeds are bringing thoughts on that we don't need, don't desire, then we feel in accordance to the way those thoughts are coming out. Then the way we feel determines our actions. And then, of course, our actions determine our results. So that's where we get to push past our limits and rebuke those weeds and not give them space in our head. And I wonder what somebody else is thinking about me. I wonder what they're talking about me. I wonder what they're saying. That's none of my business. Stay away from that weed. It will grow healthy and hardy, and the more that it possesses in your mind, the more it will keep you from actually having what it is that you want. The more it will keep you from actually focusing on the things that are important to you and creating that plant to grow more. Your beliefs shape your reality. It is essential to create positive, empowering beliefs. And, I'm going to back that up with a biblical principle. And Christ said, if you would only believe. And so for those that are saying, well, you're just saying our beliefs create our reality, I can't believe that to be true. But I'm just going to back it up with something that Christ said. He said, if you would only believe, you could have whatever you speak. And see, the problem is, it's not that you can just switch everything this very second for the most part and believe 100%. It is something that we exercise and we bring ourselves up into that. Now you might say, how is that? I thought the apostles believed. They did, but there was a point in time where they went out to help a young lad or somebody that was demon-possessed, and they couldn't get this out of him. And the father brought the son to Jesus and said, your disciples couldn't do anything for him. Of course, Jesus helped him out. And then they came up to him later, kind of humiliated and embarrassed, and said, why couldn't we do that? You gave us the power. Jesus says, because of your unbelief. And so success requires hard work, consistency, to stay committed, stay focused, stay persistent. Those are things that, we think, well, just to believe, that's easy. Not really. Not really. To believe isn't actually as easy as it might be cracked up to be. It actually takes work to develop ourselves and to get our belief system up. As long as there's internal dialogue going on that's negative, extreme negative internal dialogue, it's going to really affect the belief system, especially a positive belief system. Lastly, take responsibility. You must not, and I must not, give somebody else the credit for me having negative internal dialogue. I cannot give somebody else credit for me not having belief. I get to take full responsibility. As soon as I do, as soon as I take responsibility, then of course I am now in control of my future in my life. I'm in control, and I'm no longer being tossed around by external circumstances. When I'm talking about external circumstances, I'm also referencing to that weed that we had talked about earlier. Lastly, get out of your zone. Do things that challenge you. I don't want to try to give examples. You get to figure that out yourself. Get out of your comfort zone. Do something that really challenges you. My mentor would say, if your palms aren't sweaty at least once a week because of something that you've done that's really challenged you, you're probably not going anywhere. So that one was a little bit tough. Lastly, you're going to fail. Failure is an event, not a person. It is something that happens. It's not a person. And so when we experience that, we move past that event and go to the next event. The next one might be another failure, and it might be a massive success. But we discover with each promotion with each dilemma or failure is an equal or greater promotion. Connected if we should discover it. So lastly, I'd just like to remind you that your mind and my mind is a garden. It starts out when we were really young as fertile soil, still is fertile soil. Problem is, as we have developed and we have met challenges, and sometimes we've met challenges with positivity and strength and power, and other times we've met it with weakness and blaming and shaming and guilting and doing all that good stuff. And so we have really eroded a lot of the possibilities for the moment, but then that soil is still as fertile as it ever was. It just needs to be weeded and tended to the good plants that are coming up. With that being said, guys, make it a great day. And as always, remember, don't settle for less than who you are. May God bless you.